Hello everyone, my name's Adam and I'm here to talk about the Hodemus Nano in conjunction with the grid pad, either 12 or grid pad 15. So, without further ado, the Nano is a head mouse. You control it by the use of your head, and you have to wear, I don't know if you can just about see, I've got a little silver dot on my forehead. In the box with the Nano comes a packet of the silver dots, which look like a sheet of silver dots like so. There's a head mouse Nano, the actual unit itself, which is a silver box. The front face looks like that with the main camera and two LEDs. The rear face has a little tiny black box with 4 tiny dip switches in it. We'll come back to that in a second. The bottom face has a space for the micro USB and a little switch adapter. So before thinking about putting it into your enclosure, your grid pad metal enclosure to keep it safe and secure, you might want to think about the dip switches I touched on there, which control a number of different things. The most important of all is what I call mouse gain, which is doubling the speed that the mouse can operate at. So that's the amount of head movement you're likely to have to do to move the cursor across the screen. Now, by default, when you first receive a Nano, all of these dip switches are set to on, and you'll need to switch the first one to off to double the mouse speed. The writing is tiny, so you might need to look very carefully, and I would recommend either a small jeweler's screwdriver, or I just use a little bent paper clip just to reach into the dip switches and alter those. Once they're done, they can be left alone. And one of the beauties of this head mouse is that it is easy to set up. There is no software involved in this at all. The other place that you may want to think about, if you're needing to increase the speed or in fact reduce the speed of the mouse for a user, the other place to look is within Windows mouse speed settings. So just to think about that, you can increase or decrease the speed there, perhaps before you start fiddling with the dip switch settings here. So alongside the Hodemus Nano itself, there's then the enclosure which comes with your kit for the grid pad, either 12 or 15. And today I've got an enclosure for the grid pad 15. It comes in 2 parts. There's the front facing part of the enclosure, and then there's a rear face as well. And fundamentally, the 2 parts go together with the head mouse inside. So it'll look like this. I'm just going to put it together. In a moment, I'll screw this together so you can see that separately. And then the finished article will look like this, with 2 legs hanging down either side, and they will then attach to the grid pad 15 with the provided screws. So in this image you can see how the device will look mounted from the front face of the grid pad and then from the rear face, with the USB trailing from the Nano neatly routed down into the USB port on the grid pad. And we provide a couple of cable fixation ties to help you route that USB neatly. Okay, so hopefully you can now see that I've moved over to my grid pad 15. The enclosure is mounted on top of the device. I've got it plugged in. I'm wearing my silver dot, and you can see that the cursor is moving around on the screen. I'm moving my head to make that happen. So there's a couple of things before we look at grid settings just to note. Firstly, you can change the sensitivity of this mouse either by changing the dip switch as already discussed, or by going to Windows settings. So if I just minimize grid for a moment and go into the settings for Windows, choose mouse, and I can change the cursor speed here. I normally start about halfway and see how I get on. But remember that I have flicked that dip switch, so it's already faster than the default would be. I tend to find that's quite useful most of the time. But that's something else that you can try. The other thing I've done is I've plugged an adaptive switch into the base of the Nano. So at the moment, if I wanted to click on something, so if I wanted to change that cursor speed, I could press my switch, and you can see that is working. So I can control all of my computer. I can go into grid, and I can control grid here if I want to as well, just by using a mouse click. So this is for somebody who has got good head control and perhaps also has some way of clicking a switch reliably and easily and comfortably. That might be a really nice way of working. I think one other thing to say just before we move into grid settings is positioning of the cursor. I am looking directly ahead and I'm finding that my cursor is slightly out of center off to the right hand side of the screen. Now to correct that, I can push my cursor towards the edge of the screen. In this case, the right hand edge will bring the cursor more to the left, in other words to the center of the screen. I'll just show you that now. So I've pushed slightly against the edge of the screen, and when I come back to a rest position, I was very careful there to just come back a few centimeters towards the center of the screen. But if you've been doing a lot of unusual head movement, you can find that the cursor right now, I've just done that, is naturally positioned in the bottom left hand corner of the screen. So if I push left first and then down, oh, I've gone too far, a little push up. That's better, and you can see I can reposition the cursor at any point. There's no software needed. It's just something that the user will learn to do, okay, and needs to get used to doing. So let's have a look at grid settings now. Menu, settings, access, and pointer. The Nano is a head pointer. So you will see the first option here says click to activate. That's what I've been doing with my adaptive mouse. Probably more common is dwell to activate. So I'm going to select this option, and that means to hover over a cell for a set length of time to make something happen. In this case, I'm going to need to hover for 2 seconds, but note I can change that if I want to. The cell is going to be highlighted with a border, but I can change that also if I want to. And if I was using computer control, I'm going to be using the zoom to click facility. I'll show you that towards the end of this short video. So I'm going to click on OK and then show you how this works. Okay, so I'm going to go to the chat page in Fast Talker. I'm hovering, the grey circle is going around. Now I need time to think to get used to my keyboard, so I'm going to use the rest cell, and the rest cell will just pause those dwell selections while I stop and take in the page that I'm on. I'm ready to go. I'm going to write the word hello. Unrest. Look at H. As long as I'm somewhere in that cell, it keeps selecting. There's some natural movement. I have got the head mouse set to be really quite sensitive. Now after 3 selections, it's probably worth my while going out to prediction, and there is the word I wanted. Okay, so that's using dwell to select, and firstly click to select or click to activate to make selections using grid 3 settings. To finish then, I'm just going to show you this using computer control. So in Fast Talker, there's some computer control grids, or you can use one of the separate computer control plugin grid sets. So I'm going to go to computer, and my grid is now over on the right hand side. I'm going to need to choose my action before I zoom in on something. So I'm going to choose left click, and then I'm going to look at File Explorer, and there's the zoom to click that was selected in settings. And it helps me it just makes it a bit easier to zoom in on a small target. I'm going to now, if I wanted to double click on, say, the pictures page, I could go to double, and then pictures. The zoom will help me. I can steer that cursor while it's moving in. Again, and if I wanted to close this window, choose my action, and then keep focused on the thing I want to click on. So that in essence is the Headmouse Nano, and other head mice work in a similar way. I should say I'm probably optimum positioning. I'm about an arm's length away from the device. In the specification, it's optimal working distances between about 45 and 60 centimeters, but it will cope with up to about 1.5 meters away. The only thing you need to bear in mind is that the further away you are from the screen, the more head movement you are going to need to do to equate to movement on the screen. Okay, I hope that was helpful. For more information, do go to our website, thinksmartbox.com, where you can find more information about Nano, and all the manuals and specifications are there as well. Thanks for listening.